That thud you heard yesterday at about 1:15 p.m. was the city of Pittsburgh crashing headfirst into reality. And now Mark Madden and I are here to clean up the mess. Tim Benz and Mark Madden. It is Madden Benz Unfiltered. And that's a good title for today because there's no reason to filter any reaction to what we saw yesterday from the Pittsburgh Steelers against the San Francisco 49ers in the regular season opener for 2023. It was a mess from front to back. It was a mess top to bottom. The coaching, the players, all of it, Mark. Where should most of the blame lie?
Well, we've done an about face, Tim. Before the game, everybody said that they had Super Bowl possibilities. Pickett was going to get MVP votes and blah, blah, blah. Now it's only one game, and that was against a really good team. And it's not how you start, but how you finish, yada, yada. It's just everything gets repurposed and repositioned, based on what you want to believe. I think yesterday exposed that the Steelers aren't remotely close to a Super Bowl. Okay, I still think they're going to go 9-8 and be in the playoff race and probably finish just out. But they have a ton of gaping holes, in particular on defense. Kenny Pickett's nowhere near what the preseason made him look like. And it is very much a work in progress with a lot of work to be done. I put most of the blame on the Steelers simply not being ready to play. I think had they been ready, they still would have lost, but it would have been a competitive game. But they weren't competitive. They got out physical. They got out coached. They got out everything. And that goes on the head coach. But we're not allowed to do that here in Pittsburgh. So just let's not waste time and blame Matt Canada.
And I did see a lot of that on the blogs, on Twitter. I mean, Mark, one thing we didn't talk about on the podcast that I didn't see and didn't hear about until this morning was apparently Pickens liked an Instagram post that was critical of Kenny Pickett. And then I go in the comments section and say, well, let's just assume he was talking about the play calling and not the quarterback. It's like automatic default.
George Pickens is going to be a problem.
Oh, he's got diva qualities. There's no doubt about it.
But he's going to be a problem, and I would never justify that. But he's not going to get used like his talent dictates. Maybe not ever here.
You're right.
The minute things got tight yesterday, they stopped using the middle of the field and just started throwing down the sideline.
You're right, but the thing about Pickens so far, that has failed to allow me to jump fully on the train of they're underutilizing him is because I don't see him running himself open enough so that Pickett can't possibly throw anywhere but him. I don't see that enough. Like, the Rams game yesterday, Mark, they got Tutu Atwell and some guy named Puka something or other, each counting for 119 yards receiving with Cooper Kupp out. And that's a Matt Stafford who's probably in the Ben Roethlisberger stage of his decline.
Yeah, maybe Pickett needs to throw people open. Maybe he needs to be a lot better than he was yesterday.
Sure, he didn't do enough of that.
He was absolute crap. And it showed that the preseason hype was just silly, that 5 for 5 was just silly. Cam Hayward wanting to call him Big Ken like Big Ben, that's just silly. As we said on the podcast, and Tim, this seems to be gaining momentum. He's more like Bubby Pickett.
That headline did work, didn't it?
Yeah, I think he was just absolutely awful. Awful. I think if you want to blame a player, the blame starts with him, like it would with any quarterback, but even more so yesterday.
Well, people still want to try to find the way to blame the coordinator, and they're picking apart this play or this sequence or this approach. And, I get where those criticisms come from.
No, he's not doing a great job, but Tomlin keeps bringing him back.
There's that.
The overall philosophy of the offense is okayed by Tomlin. And again, we blame Canada because we don't like him in the first place. Okay, we can't blame the Golden Boy quarterback. We can't blame the coach. We can't blame the elite defense. Tim, as soon as they fell behind yesterday, Twitter was, well, they got to get rid of Canada. Shut the frig up. Learn football. Watch the game. Know that this all trickles down from the head coach who's been a fraud for the best part of a decade.
Well, the reason why I was railing against making this a Matt Canada referendum all week was because even if you looked at what you didn't like about the play design, sequence, whatever, the plays that did work out in concept on the field, they still didn't execute. They slipped. They fell down. Pickett threw behind. Pickett threw too far out in front. They weren't caught. They weren't blocked up well. Anything that was drawn up that could have worked was negated because they couldn't out-execute the Niners. So if he did call a different play, or if he did set up a different sequence, those probably wouldn't have worked either because they were the inferior team to the same degree, Mark, that they were on the road in Philadelphia last year, that they were on the road in Buffalo last year when they played.
Oh, no question. They're not in a class with teams like that. And Tim, you know how I said before the year I thought this team might wind up being likable? I was wrong. Pat Pete, he's just another blowhard. Comes in, supposed to be a glue guy, says Brock Purdy has tells, gets roasted by Brock Purdy all day long. Levi Wallace, roasted by Brock Purdy all day long. Pat Freiermuth does the dab after scoring a touchdown, down 20-7. 25% of the stadium was Niners fans, so the Steeler fans sold out. Just an absurdly bad day all the way around. And by the way, how's Joey Porter Jr. only get 7 snaps? And Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace get 60-some each. How's that happen? Because cornerback, Tim, all you got to do is cover the other guy. Joey Porter's young, athletic, and fast. Pat Peterson's washed up, yet Pat Peterson played 9 times the snaps.
Couple things on that. First of all, Wallace got a post-whistle penalty, and he also wasn't able to secure the tackle on McCaffrey's huge run. So those were 2 big negatives against him. Peterson, his explanation for the whole tells thing, like do they have tells in their offense? I asked him about it afterwards. I said, were the tells there or did they ditch him now? And he said, no, they were still there. I just didn't get the picks that I was supposed to get. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, hold on.
He's a bum. He got fried yesterday. He's a bum.
Are you really trying to tell me that we should take solace in the fact that you knew what was coming and you still couldn't stop it anyway? Like that's supposed to be somehow better?
That's typical Steelers. That's what I mean by all hat and no cattle. Okay, Patrick Peterson before the game, blah, blah, blah. He gets fried. What he said didn't happen. After the game anyway, blah, blah, blah. All talk.
I hope when he said the 2 picks, I'm sure he meant the one where
he won't get 2 picks all season.
The one where Purdy and Ayuk, where he was in coverage, they just made a really good catch and throw for the touchdown. Maybe he's counting that as one. I hope he's not counting the other touchdown because he was shaken before the ball was even thrown. He was already out of the play. He'd slipped because Ayuk shook him out of his shoes.
I got a question for all the dopes out there, all you people watching. You know who are you? You're stupid. Okay? Don't you get tired of this? Don't you ever get tired of this? Blah, 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 blah. Tells, picks, dab, blah, blah, blah. And they get beat 30-7. Don't you ever get tired of this?
See, like I was prepared for a couple of outcomes. I was prepared for this to go a number of different ways going into the game. Like if they won, I wasn't going to up my prediction to 11 or 12 wins because they beat the Bills and they beat the Bengals in week 1 last year and the year before that. And they were still a 9-win team. So I wasn't going to adjust based on a win. If they had lost a close game, I wasn't going to change my prediction because the Niners are really good. But I didn't really have them losing by 23 points as part of the calculus about how to react to this.
Well, what I didn't have as part of my expectations was for them to come out utterly flat and basically roll over like dogs the first quarter. And it's because they believe their own hype. When it didn't get written like a storybook, like a fairy tale right away, Tim, they rolled over and died because it wasn't what they envisioned themselves.
As I've gotten further away from the game, Mark, and maybe this is just because there's been so much talk about everything else, a lot of the things we've discussed already, the most disappointing thing might have been the play in the trenches on both sides. I mean, both the defensive and offensive lines got destroyed, and you could partially.
Did Broderick Jones play at all?
Pardon me?
Did Broderick Jones even play at all?
Yeah, at the end because Okorafor got banged up at the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, God forbid that a first-round pick that we traded up to get should go right in and play because this is a very complex game and you have to learn it. and a rookie just isn't ready to play, even if you are getting killed 30-7 and veterans are getting embarrassed play after play, the rookie shouldn't play. Tim, that's just the way the Steelers do things.
Well, and that's carried over to Porter, too. There's nothing that I saw from the offensive line yesterday to suggest to me that Broderick Jones couldn't have done anything that Moore or Okorafor did. I mean, as a unit.
No. And that's what people are saying on Twitter when I talk about Porter and Jones, that the result wouldn't have been any better, had you played them. And it wouldn't have been. But, I mean, they're better players. They have more pedigree. They just are talented. I mean.
And you advance the learning curve then, too, a little bit.
Yeah, you expedite the learning curve. I mean, maybe they're better in 3 weeks for having played now. I think it's a poorly coached team with an elitist attitude despite results that dictate it should have anything but.
Well, speaking of 3 weeks, how about next week against the Browns? I mean, the Bengals are a much better offense than the Steelers. The Browns held them to 3 points and 2.6 yards per play or something ridiculous. Everybody's kind of focusing on what did Watson do? How did the offense look with Watson? I was more looking at what the defense did, because the defense made the Bengals look every bit as bad as the Bengals looked against the Steelers last year in week 1.
Well, do you agree, Tim, that the Steelers now are playing for their season against Cleveland?
I don't think it's that extreme yet.
I do.
I don't. I mean, I could still see them winning 10 games even if they start 0-2, but
there's no way. There's absolutely no way.
I just, they're doing what they did to themselves previously, which is back themselves into a corner with another lousy September again, potentially.
No, it's starting poor because the coach is rotten, because the coach doesn't have them prepared, because the coach is blah, 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 too. That's what's going on here. Now, they might beat Cleveland, probably should, but it's the second game and they're playing for their season. And if they lose this game, Tim, they'll rally. They won't be able to rally enough.
The AFC being as
Tim,
deep.
that would be 2 home losses. Let's not forget that.
Right, yeah. And, well, some of that was in part of the equation the last couple of years, too, when they were 1-2-1 or 1-4 or whatever. They were 2-6 last year. But one thing they do have to caution themselves against is, that December run that they went on last year. December this year includes a trip to Seattle where they always stink, and 2 division games against the Browns and the Ravens, I believe, at the end of the schedule. So keep that in mind.
Seattle was awful.
Seattle was bad. That was that might have been the most surprising result of the whole weekend, was how bad
I thought it was, yeah.
How badly they got beat by the Rams, with as limited as the Rams were. Like I said, they've got Tutu Atwell and a guy named Puka lighting them up. I don't know how that happened with what remains of Matt Stafford. How about the Ravens losing J.K. Dobbins? They managed to win with only running for 110 yards and Dobbins going out. I mean, it was the Texans. I don't know what to take away from the Ravens result.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. First weeks are weird, and that's the one thing we can maybe use to assign some optimism to the Steelers moving forward. But I just thought I just wrote a column for the Trib I sent in, Tim. My column's all over the place because I don't know where to start, finish, or what to emphasize. I don't.
If you want
that game yesterday was so thoroughly awful on the part of the Steelers. One player, literally one guy played good, and that was TJ Watt. One guy.
And if you want to use a Tomlinism to describe this, it's like he talks about with popcorn. It's here, it's there, it's everywhere. It was all popcorn, and it was all burned. And nothing smells worse than burnt popcorn. And it was all burned yesterday, especially the secondary.
I'm just really tired of his flaws being overlooked. Really tired of things like bad starts and the trickle down to Matt Canada because he's in charge of Matt Canada. Just the empty platitudes. I'm just tired of Mike Tomlin, period.
They're already underdogs, by the way, to Cleveland. They're a point and a half underdog on Monday night.
The way both teams played, they should be.
There's something else I want. Oh, Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's right. And talking about Ayuk, because Ayuk was the star of the day for San Francisco. For as good as
that's the thing about San Francisco, Tim. They have so many weapons that somebody's going to break through. If not for a big day, then for even just one big play like McCaffrey did. The Niners have the depth of weaponry that the Steelers like to imagine they do, but don't.
I asked Fitzpatrick about why Ayuk was the guy who ended up with the biggest day of all the potential eligibles, and he had no comment. He said, I got no comment about that. And him saying that he's got no comment means he has a comment, and he just didn't want to say it.
I'll tell you what it is. The corners can't cover.
Some of it was in zone, too. He was eating their zone alive, too.
We try to imagine that there's some secret. Well, Tomlin tries to make us imagine there's some secret to playing Steeler football, Tim. You know what a cornerback does? He covers somebody. You know what a tackle does? He blocks somebody. It really isn't a lot more complicated than that. But because it's some mystical game where coaching matters so much, he said, in the name of self-importance, we just try to imagine that Dan Moore Jr. and Patrick Peterson, one a scrub, one washed up, we imagine they have some edge on first-round draft picks. And they don't. They just don't.
You see anything from the inside linebackers at all to suggest that core is better than what we've seen in recent years?
They're like the cornerbacks, Tim. We can flip them over. They're done on this side.
Real quick, Mark, before we get some comments here, just a couple other topics here and there. We try to not talk about college football because I know you don't like talking about college football.
Well, Phil Jerkovic, that's not like the actual game, but yeah, he popped off. You know, here he is like a 30-year-old, seventh-year quarterback who's been at 3 schools, not made any impact. And he's
Dr. Philip J. Jerkovic. Wasn't it Dr. Kenneth J. Pickett? Now it's Dr. Philip J. Jerkovic.
And he complains about getting booed. I mean, it just, he's a joke. Everybody at Pine Richland said he was a big baby back then. He's no less a big baby now. He's a pampered brat.
And I think Pitt is a 1-point favorite on the road at West Virginia going to Morgantown. I don't know what to make of that game. I mean, there was a disappointing home loss for Pitt against what they probably think was a lesser opponent in Cincinnati. They were wrong. And then you got the one real game that mattered for West Virginia when they played a Power 5 school. I mean, they beat up on Duquesne, who hung with them for a little bit.
What was the score? I didn't know that. What Duquesne played West Virginia?
Yeah, last week. It was 14-14 before a 2-hour lightning delay. And then
West Virginia, they arranged that lightning delay to slow Duquesne's momentum.
Clearly, yes. It was 14-14. They took a touchdown off the board on an offensive pass interference. They had to kick a field goal, and then that's how they went into the lightning delay. And then after that, it was all downhill in Morgantown for the Dukes. But their first game against a Power 5 school was when they lost to Penn State, and Penn State badly. So I don't know how this one goes in West Virginia.
Who's coach now? Is it still Jerry Schmidt?
Yeah.
He should have, after the lightning delay, it was 14-14 at the delay?
Well, it was 14-10 because they just had a touchdown taken off the board and they had to settle for a field goal.
So they were only down 4.
Yeah.
He should have refused to play in the name of safety.
That's a good call.
I can't subject my kids to this.
That's right. He should have just left on the team bus. He would have been back home on the bluff by the time the game was ready to play, and they wouldn't have known where Duquesne went. Wouldn't have known what happened. Would have been a master plan. Look, we covered. What else? Oh, the last thing I want to talk about was the Pirates TV deal. It sounds like you are hearing the same things I'm hearing, that this thing might actually get salvaged with FSG, huh?
Well, it's not imminent, but I heard they've talked again. Is probably a good way to put it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm hearing that it's moving back towards that direction, in part because the Pirates realized that there's no security beyond this year with the MLB deal, what the terms would be.
That's right.
So why not stick with FSG for as long as you can?
If I were FSG, though, FSG wanted the Pirates to buy in for 20% of the new network, correct?
I've heard some number like that, yeah.
Now that the Pirates are back, I would say, did we say 20? We went 40.
Yes, right, yeah. Now welcome. Isn't that kind of what happened the first time around when they started talking about doing a network, that there were conversations and then it was shut down and there were more conversations and somebody went back to the other one with a more palatable deal in their favor, and that's where it went kaput real fast?
All I know is if we got 40% from Nottingham, that could mean an attacking midfielder for the Reds at the January transfer window.
Wouldn't that be great? What if Liverpool won a championship because they got Nutting's wallet, Mark? How great would that be for you?
Well, it's funny, though, because we always think when somebody owns multiple, entities, that there's one big pot of money, and that's just not true.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Like we always say that Nottingham can afford the new ski lift. That's just not true. They just have nothing to do with it, but it's still fun banter.
It still makes for a good joke, and it's a long 3 hours to fill, or 30 minutes to fill.
That's right.
As you've said. Speaking of which, let's go to some comments. This comes from Eric. The Golden Boy Messiah was dreadful. It's almost as if preseason performance doesn't portend much. And then the chasm between the Steelers and legit NFL teams is wider than the so-called pundits proclaim. You know where else it might be wider? Between the Steelers being a 9-10 win team, and that means playoff contention, and not. Because the AFC is deep at the top this year, and they might not be able to scramble their way back into contention.
Well, that's why they're not going to make it. Like in the NFC, they'd make it. For sure.
Probably, yeah.
You know, in fact, if they were in the AFC South, although I don't know, Jacksonville might be pretty good.
Yeah, but they could be a second-place team in the AFC South and bulk up on wins against the other two teams, theoretically. But, Jacksonville's...
And they cross over against the NFC South.
Exactly.
Peter King wrote in his column that he expects Jacksonville to get the number 1 seed in the AFC because their schedule almost couldn't possibly be weaker.
That's why I tell people in fantasy football, if you still can and you don't have a defense or you like to stream defenses, pick up Jacksonville's this week and just hang on to them because they're going to play. I don't know how good their defense is. I know how bad the offenses are that they're going to face 10 times this year.
Yeah, they could easily win 13 games.
Eric added, by the way, Pickett throwing behind, over, and nowhere in the vicinity of his receivers all game was somehow Matt Canada's fault. Yeah, that's kind of how we
know what's funny, though? Ordinarily, when a quarterback, soils the bed like Pickett did, you can look at any number of things that went wrong, Tim. He just was inaccurate. Like, past his inaccuracy, I didn't see anything that was like, I thought his feet were happy a little bit, but then again, he was under constant pressure.
Did it also look to you like he was getting swallowed in the pocket? Like the pocket
yeah, you know why that was? I bet that's because the offensive line got pushed back into him.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
A lot of times their pass rush wasn't beating the offensive lineman. They were just taking right back into Pickett.
Yeah,
the Steelers got overwhelmed physically.
They did. But, one thing that I was thinking of, and maybe it's the delivery or how he stands in the pocket. I don't know. But, Ben was what, 6'5"?
Right.
Pickett's 6'2".
Hold on, Jim. He's Big Ken.
That 3 inches looked a hell of a lot different as far as the delivery of the football in a collapsing pocket.
You know what's funny too, Tim? I hate to say this, but we're known by the company we keep. Like Patrick Peterson with the blah, blah, blah. Even Cam Hayward now with some of the blah, blah, blah.
The Big Ken stuff, you mean?
Well, yeah. Win a playoff game for crying out loud. The Steelers are a team. The Steelers are the Tottenham Hotspur of the NFL. They act like they're good and they're not.
This is what Richard says. The national broadcast media says that this doesn't look like a Tomlin coach team. Unfortunately, this is all too often exactly how it looks for a Tomlin coach team. And that's the new narrative of what was the case, say, in the, 2010s, thereabouts with Roethlisberger. Correct. The Steelers win with running the ball and defense. No, they didn't. They ran very little, and Bell, Brown, and Ben won games that were shootouts, but they just went into every game saying the same thing about running and defense. Now it's what a Tomlin coach team is. Well, what a Tomlin coach team is 12 out of 16 years not winning a playoff game.
By the way, Tim, I hadn't better talk crap about Spurs because they had the same record as Liverpool, 3 wins and a draw, and I think we play them pretty soon.
Eric says small sample size, but there's no evidence to suggest Pickett is anything but average.
No, that's not true. I think he'll be above average. I just think with our fast food culture, we want to skip right to the end. Okay, I think he's a work in progress, but my point is he was nothing like the hype in the preseason.
Dan says Pickett took way too long to throw. I was counting to 4 or more, I assume is where he went on to say from there. But, yeah, I don't even know if he had 4 seconds in the pocket all that long.
Again, his biggest problem was inaccuracy, period.
Calvin Isaac says the streak continues. Can't throw more than 1 TD in a game. If Burrow can't throw against the Browns, that's not a good sign.
By the way, Tim, I will say this. Even though Pickett was really inaccurate, there were a couple times when better receivers would have bailed him out. You know what I mean? There were times when, he didn't deserve the catch to be made, but it could have been made anyway. Like there was a ball on Freiermuth's back shoulder he couldn't hold on to, but he should hold on to. You see what I'm saying?
No, I do see what you're saying, and it actually manifested almost exactly the same way. Remember that one throw to from Purdy to Deebo Samuel? Right. He did exactly what you're talking about, where it was, except the difference was he was running, he was on the move, he was kind of scrambling, he threw it errantly, and Deebo managed to stop, plant, push off, push back, and catch the football.
One thing we shouldn't ignore is that Pickett and Purdy are at the exact same places in their career, right? Drafted the same year, got in the starting lineup. I mean, Pickett a little earlier, right? But about the same, like within 4 games of each other. And Purdy's a lot better. Now, we can say he's on a team that's better, that's coached better, that has better weaponry, that has a better offensive line, and that's all true. But the things they both do, the throwing, the accuracy, the composure, Brock Purdy's a lot better.
Well, Pickett probably just has too many tells, Mark. That's probably the problem.
Well, what Purdy has is Kyle Shanahan.
Sure. Yes.
And Pickett has Mike Tomlin and Matt Canada. I mean, come on.
No one fears the Steelers anymore. It's like playing a peewee football team. Mr. Rooney needs to wake up and realize what's going on with his football team and demand change.
You see, Tim, here's the thing. And, a lot of the stuff I say, people think I say for shtick and to be funny. Okay, because I phrase it in a funny way. That was always my problem. When I coached hockey, I would say something funny to make a point to the kids and then laugh. And I'd say, why are you laughing? Don't laugh. But now I lost my train. Oh, I always say that Art II wants to do things the way Daddy and Granddaddy did it. And that sounds like a joke. It's true. It's true. That's why they'll never fire the coach. That's why they'll never play rookies. They want to do things the way Daddy and Granddaddy did it. Art, that's what Art wants, and Tomlin placates.
Lee says Pat Pete does not deserve a nickname, especially in this town. Earn it first. He should be Pitter Pat, if anything.
Yeah, that's not funny. See what I mean about not funny? As if by cue. Lee, you're banned from the show.
Justin says Dan Moore got burned so many times yesterday. Broderick Jones should have gone in earlier. It wouldn't have helped much. Well, then what's the difference? Well, I guess
No. I will say once Dan Moore starts, he finishes. Okay.
Where's this one? Josh, this is why I've steadily become less and less of a football fan. They come out flat. They look unprepared. They're getting destroyed statistically. But as soon as they make a tackle or Freiermuth's TD, they pose and act like clowns when they're still down double digits.
I can't agree more. I can't agree more.
Look, I saw that a little bit with Watt and some of the sacks he was getting when they were down 20 and he was doing his celebration. But I honestly thought, the second sack, he didn't celebrate at all. The third.
How about Hargrave knocked him?
Oh, I didn't see. I was in the tunnel by that point. I didn't see that.
Hargrave did the Watt celebration after a sack.
Oh, did he really? Did he?
Yeah. Watt played so good, I'm not going to get pissed.
Yeah. See, the thing with him, I honestly think he was begging the crowd to stay into it with his third celebration.
I agree. And I think Freiermuth was doing it to be cool.
You mean at halftime, before halftime?
Yeah.
By the way, how bad was that carryover from halftime? The old New England Patriot thing, score at the end of the first half.
Oh, they doubled down on not being ready.
They scored at the end of the first half, and then they doubled down with how bad they were on offense and defense. McCaffrey runs right down their throat on the first possession, and then they punt again. It was just. And
Tim, by the way, for us ridiculing Freiermuth for his wonky behavior, white guy, it's okay.
Well, does that qualify for Watt too? Then.
TJ White. No, I mean, Tim, I say that.
I just think taco sales are going to go through the roof on Sunday. I figured that much during the game.
He's doing something else, too. What's his other act?
Snickers, I think. I didn't see the Snickers one yet.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, he's funny in a meathead kind of way.
Meathead Jim funny? Is that what you mean?
Just meathead.
Jim guy funny.
Any definition of meathead, he fits. Him and his brothers. It's like the Meathead family. That could be their sitcom or an SNL skit. Let's welcome the Meathead family.
The Meathead family sub.
That'd be good on like a Family Feud type of thing.
All right, Mark, before we go, are you holding on for the Guns N' Roses tickets in Miami?
Well, I haven't seen any more bad news. They have one show between now and then. I'm going to Miami Friday, so I'll find out. How about this Saturday? I checked this out right before we got on the air. Messi plays for Miami Saturday, but it's in Atlanta.
What are you going to do? Try to, take a car? Drive? Well, Miami to
Atlanta. No, probably just won't go. Probably just come home.
Yeah. I saw it was a bad week for concerts. Not only did they cancel, but Pearl Jam canceled, Bruce Springsteen canceled.
That makes it 2/3 of a good week for concerts.
All right. And then Ed Sheeran canceled because he couldn't load into wherever he was going in Las Vegas.
Oh, was he the load-in guy?
He was the loading guy. I was thinking of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, GNR looks like it was Axl's voice, by the way.
Okay.
Because he apologized after a show for being hoarse.
Well, we're hoarse from yelling at the Steelers so much. And based on how things went, well, we won't be able to do it again next week because we're going on a Monday before the Cleveland game. Maybe we should do a bonus edition or something, or just save it up for next week because we could have 2 losses to talk about for that next Madden Benz Unfiltered.
I'm hoping we have Guns N' Roses to talk about.
We will discuss that as well. This is Madden Benz Unfiltered here at Trib Live.